All right. I think we are live on both Instagram and on YouTube. Hi, everybody. I've got my dual rig going today so that Instagram people you can watch on Instagram, of course, because I can't stream to both Instagram and YouTube. So thank you all for joining me. Tonight, I am doing a live reread of my favorite scenes from The Vow That Twisted Fate, which is the debut epic fantasy novel that I released last year. And I know because it just came out last year, a lot of you may be thinking, don't you remember what you wrote last year? It seems weird to word it as cracking open the cover. Well, the truth is, I wrote The Vow That Twisted Fate back in 2016. And even though I did a lot of editing before the release, most of that editing was completely finished by December 2020. So I haven't sat down and done like a full reread of the book. And don't worry, this is not a full reread of the book. The extremely talented Talon David, voice actress and singer-songwriter, did the audiobook for The Vow That Twisted Fate. So if you like the reading tonight and you'd like to hear the whole book read by somebody who is not as nervous about being in front of the camera, then definitely check out the audiobook that's on Amazon and Audible. But tonight I'm just reading a few of my absolute favorite scenes from The Vow That Twisted Fate. They come from different parts in the book, and I'm purposefully avoiding super spoilery parts. So a couple of them may be cut a little bit short, but we're going to jump right in. The first one we're reading tonight is a scene that I call Arla's Phantasm. Half Rashada says, "LOL, don't be nervous." Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to get more comfortable doing these lives, and you guys are amazing. So thank you for joining and bearing with me. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on the scenes as we read through them. If you have questions about them, you can drop them in the chat. And I know you're going to see me looking between YouTube and Instagram, so thank you for bearing with that. Oh, hi, Amy. Good to see you, and good to see everybody watching on YouTube. And thank you for everybody watching the replay. All right, let's jump in. This is Arla's Phantasm. Arla is the main character of the book, or Queen Arlena, and it's her world that is in danger when a pentagram opens in the sky. The first thing that really changed for her early on in the book is she sees a phantasm, and in this scene, Arla's Phantasm, she actually gets to meet that phantasm a little more and get sucked into the world. So I'm going to jump right in. I barely finished tending to my wounds when a strange feeling of being watched strikes me. Forcing back my unease, I open the balcony doors and look around. The balconies of the rooms to either side of mine are both dark. Below me, the market sits empty and still. I even glance back over my shoulder to double-check my room, but see no one. My heart pounds in my chest. A great fear rises inside of me, bringing an unexplainable need to hide, to close the doors and pull close the thick drapes. My gaze is drawn reluctantly to the sky. Two eye-shaped constellations within the center of the purple-hued pentagram peer straight back at me. In their shadow, a great sense of dread, foreboding, and recognition strikes me all at once. I flee into my room, closing the glass doors behind me. I pull the drapes and sink to the floor. Studying the stars extensively in my youth leaves me confident that those constellations were not there before. And yet they pull at my memory like things I've dreamt or forgotten seeing as a child. My cheek is on fire now. I can't shake the gnawing feeling of having forgotten something important. I reach for the dagger at my ankle. The dagger! I dart across the hall to the stool by my tub, my breath rushing out when I find it still lying there. I clutch it to my chest with both hands. Closing my eyes, I breathe deeply to steady my heart. What's gotten into me? I'm scared of stars, and I'm using a dagger as a good luck charm? I try to chuckle, to shrug off my unease, but my intuition won't let me. Whispers reach my ears so faintly through the open door that I wonder for a moment if I've really heard something. Straining to comprehend the words, I tiptoe to the door, picking up multiple voices having a conversation from what sounds like downstairs. Did I wake someone when I ran across the hall? I wonder, walking as quietly as I can to the stairs. I find the hall mostly quiet when I reach the top of the stairs, but the shadowy silhouettes of a group of people stand just inside the doorway at the bottom. The darkness left without the fire or candles in the hall makes it impossible to see their faces. Pressing myself against the wall to avoid being seen, creeping around in my nightgown, I descend the steps one at a time. Although their words become clearer as I near them, they are not in my language. Everyone speaking is male, all discussing something quite urgently in hushed whispers. While their tones are not hostile, their words are rough and foreign to my ears. Are we being ambushed? How would anybody get past Talon's guards? The very thought of violence and fighting makes my mouth run dry. My palms are sweating by the time I reach the bottom of the stairs. Once there, my breath halts in my chest. The group of figures are nothing more than dark, humanoid shaped shadows. There are 4 shadows in total. One holds a wavering image of a dagger identical to the one in my hands. There is nothing malignant coming from the shadows. In fact, a peaceful familiarity about them picks at my mind. The holder of the dagger whispers several things adamantly and passionately to the others. Confidence and pride fill his voice, even though his words are incomprehensible. The name Valera catches my attention in one of his sentences. Sinking down to sit on the bottom stair, I watch them and listen to their strange words. Each time the figure holding the dagger speaks, more and more peace soothes my nerves. His voice reminds me of someone dear to me, but I can't place whom. The color of the light shifts to a deep green, illuminating the windows. A fresh, evergreen scented wind blows in. The figures before me turn to the hall. I jump up. All the people sleeping there only seconds ago have vanished. The room is empty again, just as it was when I saw the phantasm who looked like me. No sooner does the thought of her come to mind than she passes me from coming down the stairs. She doesn't seem to notice me, and her presence doesn't scare me this time. Come in, my friends. The woman speaks my language to the shadows, her mouth curving into a gentle, welcoming smile. There's no need to linger in the door. Make yourselves at home. The shadows follow the phantasm into the hall. The one holding the dagger walks ahead of the others, side by side with the phantasm. My look-alike sinks down into a throne by the fireplace. I've never seen a throne in here before. The throne is made of polished wood and gray velvet cushions, scrolling woodwork running along the top and both sides. Since we only use wood in furnishings today after a tree falls in death, this throne must have been made before the war. Kneeling before her, all the shadows bow their heads except the one with the dagger. That one shadow presents the dagger to the phantasm. Queen Valera the White, the shadow speaks my language for the first time, my heart leaping when he says the White Queen's name. I, Maverick Stormbender, heir to the throne of the keep and head to the keep's select, vow to pledge the lives of my select and myself to your service until Madra is vanquished at your hand. The phantasm, who I now realize must be Queen Valera herself, accepts the dagger with both hands. Her smile is gone, replaced by solemn resignation. Let this dagger stand as a tributary between your company and I, she says, her voice unwavering, yet sad. Swear to me this day of vow, Maverick Stormbender, and the select who follow him. She holds the dagger above her head with both hands as though pressing it for the crowd to see. Swear to me upon this blade, with your blood, that you will come to my aid whenever I call, she continues. Swear to stand loyally by my side, to be my rock when all others falter, my guide when others would deceive. Swear this here in this hall for posterity. Swear that your company will be eternally bound together at my call until Madra is defeated. The weight of her words, her requests, weighs heavily within my heart as they echo through the hall. To make a vow of such sacrifice is to surrender more to the queen than even the throne cape she chooses to wed. What situation was so bad that this girl, no older than I am from the looks of her, would require such high stakes? Maverick's shadow stands, taking the blade from Valera's hand. The blade shimmers for a moment as the shadow presses it against his palm. A thin red line trickles down the dagger's blade to the hilt. Maverick returns the dagger to Valera with a bow. So I swear by my blood on this tributary all the things you have spoken, he says. Valera presses the blade against her palm. Her blood mixes with Maverick's on the blade. Para Blista forming Climont, she whispers in the fairy tongue, holding the blade up, the tip pointed toward the ceiling. Para Torgren Veraniran. Light shines from the dagger. Runes burn bright red into the blade, the blood evaporating. White light peeking out from the sheath of my own dagger catches my attention. As I draw the blade, the runes glow red just like Valera's before me. Valera's head whips around, looking at me as if seeing me for the first time. Her expression shifts to one of shock. She opens her mouth to speak, but vanishes as the hall morphs, shifting and changing to a place I've never seen. I find myself in the center of a large dark observatory. A window spans the entire wall in front of me, through which innumerable stars stretch out in the distance. The walls and floor are gray, smooth, dark material I'm unfamiliar with. A cry catches in my throat, my hands flying to my mouth. Valera hangs suspended in a hovering ring of metal. No longer a phantasm, the White Queen is as clear and real as I am. Blood drips down from her face and eyes, nose, and mouth. Her white dress is gone, replaced by a ragged, tan, rough-spun tunic and matching pants that are torn and marred with black blotches. Multiple wounds are visible on her legs, stomach, and chest. The metal ring floats around her, several green glowing metallic runes emblazoned on it. Every few seconds, the ring cranks clockwise. Valera cries out, her face contorting in agony with each turn. Would you throw your life away, little girl? A woman asks from behind me, her deep, ominous voice sending shudders down my spine. Turning, I see a tall woman behind a black stone podium with levers and switches built into the top of it. Her aura is dark, an intimidating and imposing aura unlike any I've ever been exposed to. Her violet hair wraps around her upper arms and neck in coiled braids like snakes. Her eyes are bright red. Her skin is porcelain white, her lips a deep, deep purple, the color of her hair. Her strikingly white smile holds no warmth. She wears a simple, low-cut black dress that falls to her ankles and has long, flowing sleeves. How it must torment you, the woman in black says, to know that every turn of that wheel gives your power to me. Leaving her podium, the woman paces in a slow circle around Valera. The wheel turns 3 more times before the woman in black pauses behind Valera's back. Leaning forward, she whispers something in the White Queen's ear, her lips curling in a cruel smile. No, Valera cries out. She struggles to get away, but it's as though she's bound by invisible chains inside the ring. Who do you think will stop me? The woman in black asks. My stomach tightens in knots at the sickeningly sweet, insincere tone of the dark woman's voice. Your little man from the forges, she mocks the White Queen. Those tree huggers in your forest? Even maybe that runt of a sister. Blood splatters out of Valera's mouth when the wheel turns again. Jerking my gaze away, I press my hand over my own mouth, choking back the acid rising in my throat. I try to stop trembling, but can't. One of the glowing runes on the ring zooms out of place. Flying through the air, whirring and whistling, it smashes into the dark woman's arm. Her sleeve burns away, the rune disappearing beneath it into the woman's skin. She wavers on her feet. About time you start giving me those powers of yours, the woman gloats, regaining her balance. She returns to her podium and presses a few more switches. The ring slowly spins around Valera's body. Give me your life, sweet little queen, the woman laughs, raising her arms as more and more runes start flying in her direction one by one. Give me everything. No, I cried, jumping toward Valera. Valera's head flies up, her eyes meeting mine. The dark woman looks around, startled by her prisoner's sudden movement, but she doesn't seem to see me. I reach for Valera's hand, her eyes following my movements. My hand passes right through the White Queen, unable to touch her. Horror runs through me. Is this it? I wonder, looking at the ashen face identical to my own. Do I watch her die, unable to lift a finger? I jump when metal slams into metal behind me. I barely notice the relieved expression on Valera's face before I whirl around. A metal door lies on the floor, and 7 dwarven warriors dash into the room. Guards! The woman in black screams. Everything happens so fast after that. 2 dwarves jump at the woman in black, who holds out her hands and shoots fire at them from her palms. The other dwarves hold off the guards at the door. One dwarf in the center of the group, dressed in an impressive yet bloody set of silver armor and wielding a battle axe with heads on both ends, runs to Valera. He tries to grab her, but a shock of electricity sends him flying away to land in a heap across the room. 2 more runes go flying to the dark woman. Valera weakly raises her head, fixing her eyes on me. She nods as though wanting me to come closer. I tiptoe to her side, amazed to be standing unseen in a battle of creatures dark and ominous against the dwarven warriors. The dark woman is preoccupied with the fighting. Arlena, Valera whispers, her voice hoarse. I'm glad you could be here, to see her, to see the end. But you're gonna die, I shout in desperation. I try to grab the ring, her hand, even one of the guard's weapons. My hand passes through everything like smoke. I plunge my red runed dagger into the ring, but I only slice through air. It is as it must be, Valera whispers, eyeing the dark woman. I've seen what I must do to give you a chance to kill her. Her? I say, turning to the woman in black. Is she Maedra? Call them, Valera whispers, her eyelids beginning to droop. Call them before it's too late. Call who? I ask her. Maverick, Valera sighs, tears escaping her eyes along with her blood. The dwarf in the silver armor limps up to her. I move out of his way. He stops just before her. Strands of his long, thick, wavy brown hair fly loose around his face. Hey, Natty. And everybody else who's hopped on? From the braid trailing down his back. His deep brown eyes glitter with tears, his lips trembling as he approaches her. Valera, he whispers, his hands hovering above her shoulders. Live through it. It's too late, she whispers, her voice barely audible above the fighting. To die here will cost us everything, he says. He peers into her eyes with such conviction, his words filled with such passion that I can't help but blush and avert my gaze. Not everything, she replies. She is here. She will save my world. Are you delusional? Have you lost that much blood? He demands. No, I will live, she cries out louder than ever. The room stills at her cry. Help her, she whispers to him. Help her when she calls you. The words are the faintest she's spoken yet, so faint I can barely decipher them. No, the dwarf shouts. He takes her face in his hands, despite the sparks that fly around him and at the contact. Pulling her face to his own, he kisses her softly, slowly, as though nothing and no one else exists. When he's finally tossed away from her by electricity, she raises her head in my direction one last time. One wish, she stutters, blood trickling from the corners of her mouth. Era Valim Pura. No, the dwarf cries. Valera stands tall, beams of light shining from her eyes upon those before her. Now! End it, she demands. The dwarf's hand flies with a broken cry. His axe whistles through the air toward his love. Just before it can strike her chest, the dwarves sparkle and vanish from the room. And I'm going to leave that scene there. This is actually early in the book. This is on pages like 55 to 60. So I don't want to spoil it too much on what happens with her. But that is the first of my absolute favorite scenes in the book, with Arla seeing her phantasm, Queen Valera. I've got a couple others too. But hello, everybody who's joined and everybody's watching the replay. Feel free to drop comments in. I've got a few more scenes I'm going to pull from the Vow That Twisted Fate to read tonight. If you're brand new to my channel or my Instagram and you don't know what the Vow That Twisted Fate is, you can check it out at the link in the description box if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're over here on Instagram, check out my bio. Vow That Twisted Fate's just been out for a year, so really excited. I'm getting all the feels rereading this after so long. It's like coming back and meeting with a bunch of old friends. The next one is The Unintentional Proposal. And if you've read the book, you may know which one that is. But this features the legendary Dwarven warriors once again. And Arla. I actually I'm pulling it up here now. I see a lot of people on. TJ Bateman, hey. Um, RG Tully, hey, how are y'all doing? And if you're on YouTube, drop in the comments. Where are you watching from? I know this is pretty late at night for some people. So early in the book, and this is part of the blurb, so it's not too spoilery, Queen Arlena has to call a legendary group of dwarven warriors who had at one time fought the villain in this book into her time, and that's 500 years into their future. So they have to relearn the language of the time. They have to get their heads wrapped around the current political scene and everything. Don't worry, this is not a long, slow scene. It's actually one of the more comedic scenes. 12:50 a.m. in Argentina, Natty. That's so early in the morning, late at night, I guess. Um, so in this scene, Arlena has just woken up from a nightmare. And this will actually be, for those who are watching who've read the book, these might be slightly edited from the versions you have, and that's because this is the version that's going into the collector's edition when it comes out. Okay. I think I have got it all pulled up here, and we're going to jump right in. An ominous aura hovers in the fog, clinging to the trees below. The pentagram flickers above me. Goosebumps rise up on my arms. A single deep, moaning gust of wind billows through the woods, then ceases. Hurrying inside, I draw the drapes across the balcony. After changing into a gown with sleeves long enough to hide my scars, I hurry out the door. I slam into Jor's back and choke out a cry. Fire flushes my face. I can't help but bow to the dwarf, holding both my palms up before him. It's a posture I've observed dwarven merchants show their royals, and since I know I can't apologize to him in words, writer's note, because they don't speak the same language in the note, I hope my apology comes through. I'm so sorry, I find myself muttering. How could I forget? He was right outside my door. Jord takes me gently but firmly by the arm. Vigorously shaking his head, he says something I can't understand in Dwarvish. He then rushes me down the hall to the guest room, where he knocks urgently. The door swings open, where two disheveled members of the company stand on either side. They are both far older than Jor, with deep-set wrinkles in their brows and around their eyes. Silver streaks run through their dark hair that poofs out everywhere after being let out of their typical braids. Troll, Jor says to the ebony-haired dwarf before us. Then, gushing briskly in Dwarvish, he mimics my bow from earlier, and my breath catches in my chest. Was that bow not a gesture of polite humility to the older dwarven clan? Have I insulted them? That's the last thing I need. But the expression that crosses Troll's face is not that of anger or insult. Instead, he appears highly concerned. Laying the back of his hand against my forehead, he ushers me into the room. The other two dwarvenkin follow right behind him on our heels. Offering me a seat at the small table in the center of the room, Troll motions to the fireplace and says something to the third dwarf, one with bright red hair. Troll kneels before me in a bow, so low his beard drags the floor, then stands again. Placing a hand on his chest, he says, Troll. Motioning to the red-headed dwarf, who comes running up with a cup of something steaming, Troll says, Ilgar. Following suit, I put my hand on my chest. Arlena, I introduce myself. Troll turns and says something to Jor, who simply shrugs. Valera said I should be able to understand them, I remember. Hi, Life with Two YouTubers. Focusing hard on their words, I reach out with the magic within me, wishing there was a translation spell I could use. Nothing changes. Jor bows to me, then says something to Troll before hurrying out of the room. Ilgar offers me the cup of liquid, which I accept with a smile. Troll then speaks to Ilgar, who goes to rummage through some well-worn satchels on a nearby bench. The flavor of whatever I'm drinking is both bitter and smooth at the same time. Rich and dark with the faintest hint of cream, it is otherwise a black liquid. Troll holds up a finger, beckoning for me to wait. Ilgar brings a small white cube, dropping it into my cup. We all sit in awkward silence for a couple minutes before he nods, motioning to my cup. Taking another sip, I'm surprised to find that the drink is now slightly sweet as well. Maverick storms into the room, snapping at the others harshly in Dwarvish. Troll offers what sounds like some kind of explanation. Jor, who'd followed Maverick into the room, mimics my earlier bow again. My men tell me you are lonely, Maverick asks me, fixing me with an unamused glare. What? I stammer. Obviously, your differences from Valera are far more than we imagined, Maverick fumes. To proposition my men? Wait a minute, I interject, standing with a start. No one is propositioning anybody. Looking around at the Dwarvenkin in their room, none of whom can meet my gaze, I suddenly realize what happened. My stomach sinks. My gesture certainly had a different meaning than I intended. I sigh, smacking myself in the forehead. Troll must have thought I'm sick, and that's why he checked my forehead. Turning invisible right here and now would not be sufficient to hide my embarrassment. Stammering for words, I finally managed to say, I don't know how to apologize for nearly knocking him over when I rushed out of the room. The Dwarvenkin bowed to their royals with that gesture as a sign of humility and service, not as a proposition. In my explanation, it is Maverick's turn to blush. The room is awkwardly silent for a few minutes while he stares me down as though confirming the truth of my words by my demeanor. His gaze only makes me want to run and hide even more. Slowly, Maverick turns to his men, speaking in Dwarvish once again. They begin to laugh. All of them but Maverick. He turns his back to me. Seeing my face, which is likely a mask of horror and embarrassment, he cracks a small grin. You gotta hand it to the new queen, Maverick, Troll laughs. Her way of making an acquaintance is definitely charming. I gasp at Troll's words. Is he just speaking my language? They all stare at me, laughter ceasing, smiles replaced by concern. I mutter. Seriously, this language thing is a pain, Jor huffs, crossing his arms. I know, Maverick sighs, but it can't be helped. Study hard and you'll understand them in no time. Unsure whether to let them know I understand them, I decide to see if they can understand me instead. After all, Valera did say I should be able to understand them with my powers. She never said anything about it working in reverse. I'm sorry for the confusion, I say, going back to the topic at hand, half hoping that they'll understand me. I didn't mean any offense. Now it's their turn to gape at me. Did it work? This drink, I nod down to the cup in my hands. It's wonderful. I've never had anything like it. You gave her coffee? Maverick asked Troll quizzically, his scowl returning. Just one cup, my lord. Troll grins, crossing his arms. And 1 cube of sugar. Coffee, I say. Is that what it's called? And sugar? It's something sweet? Grabbing my arm, Maverick jerks me upright so hard coffee sloshes out and onto the floor. Do you lie often, lass? He asks, seething down at me. So you truly were propositioning my men. Your excuse of not understanding us. Snatching the cup, he sloshes the contents into the fireplace in a rage. I'm not lying, I shout after him, halting him where he stands. Maverick is so angry I can hear him breathing. Carl lays a firm hand on his king's shoulder. My lord, she's the queen, Charl whispers, even though she's not the white one. Maverick takes a couple deep breaths, nodding. He turns to me with a smirk. So, queen, he practically spits the word at me. You can suddenly understand us now, out of nowhere. Yes, that's right. He raises an eyebrow and waits, obviously wanting an explanation. An explanation I don't have. Talon told me once that the White Queen's powers would reawaken in time, I muse aloud. Maybe this is what he meant. A timid knock at the door interrupts us. Dora opens the door, stepping aside to allow Elsie, still in her nightgown, to enter. She takes in the bedraggled dwarves standing around and Maverick, who is still visibly fuming. When her gaze falls on me, she seems relieved for a moment. Her relief quickly changes to confusion. I love life with two YouTubers. Shame on Maverick for spilling the coffee. Yes. Especially in a world where coffee isn't a thing. Natty says, this seems so funny. Oh, thank you. Um, Arla, are you okay? I heard you shout. Fine, I assure her. It was just a misunderstanding. The dwarves exchanged glances. Did they understand Elsie now, too? Or was I the only one they heard? So early, she eyes me suspiciously. You're already dressed. Are you going out again? The fear in her voice fills me with so much shame that I have to look away from her. How can I explain the danger I feel within my own walls, the eyes that haunt me from up in the sky? Maverick, I finally say to him, regaining my composure and motioning to Elsie. This is my sister Elsie. Elsie, this is Maverick Stormbender, crown prince, now king of the Dwarven throne. He swore service to our ancestor, Queen Valera. The two bow uncomfortably to each other. Maverick shifts to a polite gentleman in an instant. Oh, thank you for joining Life with Two YouTubers. So glad that you were on. Have a good night. You must forgive me for not knowing the formalities of your time, Maverick says, all anger gone from his voice and a polite smile gracing his lips. This is all very sudden. Excuse me. This is the first time I've seen him smile like this since he arrived. Not at all, Elsie says, grinning back at him. Energy practically bubbles over from her now that she has new people to talk to. And this is Troll, Ilgar, and Jor. I motion to each of them in turn, and they bow briefly. Nice to meet you all, she beams, even though I can tell they can't understand her because of the way they are looking at me. She says it's nice to meet you, Maverick interprets for Elsie. My men don't speak your language, he explains to Elsie. Though we're a quick study, we'll make short work of it. Before we can speak more, Talon bursts through the door with his Nagita in hand. My princess, he gasped, pulling Elsie away from the dwarves, his gaze fixed solely on Maverick. I heard the shout. Talon is the one seething now. You would steal my princess away from her chambers while still in night clothes? Do your men know no courtesy? I clear my throat as loudly as I can, drawing Talon's attention for the first time. What a day for misunderstandings. I was the one who shouted, I correct him, noticing the way his arm lingers around Elsie's waist. Elsie was just coming to check on me. Nothing's wrong. And the shout, he demands? Misunderstanding. I sigh. Elsie steps away from Talon, her blush so deep that even ducking her head doesn't hide it. I guess I'll go back to bed, she mutters, bowing hastily to the dwarvenkin before darting out of the room. Talon, I ask. My desire to not have another argument between him and Maverick is the only thing keeping me from flat out ordering him from the room. My elite? He bows respectfully, but his expression doesn't hide his distaste for the dwarvenkin. Pausing at the door, he shoots me a single questioning glance. I'll be down shortly, I say with a forced smile. Satisfied with my reply, he hurries from the room. Turning to the four dwarves remaining, I pause, unsure what to say or do next. So that's the end of that scene with the unintentional proposition. And I do love that it's just so comedic. When I first wrote it, it just sort of popped itself into my story. And I was like, well, this is sort of a heavy part. It's about almost halfway through the story. I'd say another 20 pages in and it'd be halfway. And there's been so much going on that it was just nice to meet the dwarves in sort of a, I guess, unusual way than have everybody introduce themselves in a formal hall or something. Vow is the only book that made me team dwarves instead of team elves. So good for you. I really think that they become good friends. And it's not like a typical fantasy world where the elves and dwarves dislike each other just because. I really think that it's exclusive. Talon's distaste is exclusive to Maverick because when they first meet in the beginning, Maverick smashes him into the ground so hard that it cracks the pavement. So they don't get off on the right foot, but I think that mends by the end. And then, of course, Maverick and Elven King Thalen have a very rocky past. So I think it's more personal than like dwarves versus elves too, or at least that's what I hope comes across in the book. If you've read it, you can tell me your thoughts. If you haven't read it yet, you can check it out and let me know. So the next scene I'm reading is the second to last scene today. This is Sayre's scene. I'm not going to read all of it because this one does have major spoilers. Um, so let's see. Here we go. Sayre is the Moon Keeper Prince. They figure it out at the end. Yes, they do, Natty. Sayre is the Moonkeeper Prince, as well as related to certain other characters in a spoilery way that I can't say. But we see him in the opening of the Vow That Twisted Fate with the Dark Queen Maedra. And in this scene, he appears to Arlena for the first time in a slightly different form, as do many things in the dark dimension that these people have been banished to. It has twisted them into sort of darker versions of themselves or darker manifestations. So that's the scene. I will say, if you're watching the replay on YouTube, that at this point, this next scene gets a little dark. The whole fantasy has a slight dark undertone, but Sayre's scene has a little bit of a dark thing to it. So if you're not into that, this scene and then the very last scene are both a little heavy. But I still love it. It was still one of my favorite scenes to write. All right, so let's jump right in. Rain batters me, the wind whipping my skirt against my legs. Somewhere behind me, muffled by the storm, I can make out the faintest shouting of multiple voices. My heart flutters in my chest. Heaving growling breaths echo from inside the crater. Goosebumps rise on my arms. Clinking metal chains grate against something. I could wait in the bushes for the warriors to find me, I think, doubting whether I did the right thing coming alone. But the faint glimmer I saw in the orb drives me to the crater's edge with the faintest of hopes. Holding my head up and my shoulders high, I force my shaking arms and feet to climb the edge of the crater. I manage to scramble over the top, rolling ungracefully in a heap at the bottom. I land in about 1.5 feet of water. Sputtering, I force myself upright, the coldness of the wind dimming to faint warmth compared to the eternal cold blackness that towers before me. A monstrous, foul, dark beast looms over me. Shade's solid black body is merely made up of smoke. Red and green smoldering eyes glare down on me. A dark void of a mouth exhales an odious stench over me. Pale one, it seethes in a guttural, grating voice. You come here to die. I know you're just a messenger, I say, motioning to the cold, spiked shackles binding its hands to a locked metal belt. A slave of Maedra's. I know you're not here to kill anyone. It scoffs at me, flexing its shadowy fingers but not attempting to break free. I could sense your weary soul all the way from my castle, I say, reaching out a hand to it. I came to set you free. It lurches toward me, the chains barely holding it back. Stumbling back, I slip onto my back in the icy water. I notice now, from my view on the ground, that the chains are wielded to a massive wheel of metal beneath the creature's feet. Set me free, it howls. Free to destroy all in my path. What is your name? I shout at it, forcing myself to stand. It shuffles backwards away from me. Tell me your name, I say again. It is quiet for a moment. Maedra's creatures are unpredictable, I remember, and they have loved ones relying on them. How much will Maedra let this one tell me? I bring you a message from my queen, it snarls. I will not listen until you tell me your name, I demand. It stares down at me, its flaming eyes void of emotion. Even the light I saw within it from my castle seems to have vanished. I was called Sayre once, it finally says. A glimmer escapes from somewhere within it at those words. Sayre. Where have I heard that name? Thayer, I smile slightly. Do you wish to be free? You were something else before her, weren't you? You weren't always like this. It ignores me, having answered my conditional question. My queen wants you to know the three paths you may take, he says, for she saw them in the White Queen's mind before her passing. The White Queen, I muse aloud. Only Valera's servants address her by that title. Tell me, sir, that you wish to be free. You have my word, I will make it so. Path 1 repeats the history of the White One, it says, as though it did not hear me. Sir, I shout, trying to get its attention. Path 2 rejoins the worlds, allowing fate to decide the true decision, it adds, looking up at the sky. In the smoke before me, I catch a faint and brief image of a person. Tall, beautiful, and dark, a young man similar in appearance to the elves. Plunging my hand into the smoke, I grab his arm. He looks me straight in the eyes, tears falling down his chest. Shaking his head, he points to the red branded rune blazing with fire on his chest. Her brand. Don't let her do this, I plead with him, throwing my arms around him. I tug with all my might, trying to pull him out of the smoke. He clutches me as though for dear life, but I realize that even my rapidly weakening powers aren't enough to pull him physically into this dimension. Third, he says, in a melodious, deep voice right beside my ear. Pulling back, I see him smiling down at me. Long black hair hangs down to his waist. His eyes are the deepest of blues. He actually looks a lot like Rhea, I realize, something sickening me at what this means. Can this be? The air can seal the dimensions away forever, he says, brushing my hair away from my face, by killing the one who holds the key. He leans forward and whispers, my queen, if you kill her, though, the way back to this world will be lost. You will be forever trapped with us. I'm going to leave it there. You'll have to see what happens by reading if you don't already know. Sorry for the sort of cliffhanger, but it's a big, big plot spoiler here, so I can't finish that scene off. But there's one scene left, and this scene, thank you, everybody. Sarah is such a brief character. That is his big, big moment in the book. And I was really surprised at how much people really gravitated toward him for a side character. It warmed my heart. So the last scene I have is what I call the goodbye. I'm not going to read the whole goodbye because there is we love Sarah. Natty says we love Sarah. Yeah. The goodbye is obviously toward the end of the book. There's one aspect of the goodbye that was, and probably still is, the hardest for me to write and read. I'm skimming over to where it won't be too much of a spoiler, but toward the end, there's the big final battle to really close these gates, which is the point of the whole book. She has to stop Major from invading her world, and she wants to close the portal, the pentagram in the sky that leads to the evil dimension. And because my sister, all my siblings and I were sort of close growing up, but because my one of my younger sisters was so close to me, and I see certain aspects of her in Elsie, even though she wasn't completely inspired by my sister. This scene is just very raw and very real to me. I always imagine what it would be like to look my own sister in the face for a goodbye and wonder if I'm coming back or not, and what will happen to her if I don't come back. So that's sort of the context for the scene going in. And if you want to hear the rest of the goodbyes and hear whether or not Arla does come back and how it ends, you'll have to read the book, obviously. So let's see. So many good goodbyes in this scene. I'm going to try not to cry. All right, here we go. Looking over the group I'm leaving behind, I realize that only one goodbye remains, the hardest one. Turning to Elsie, my heart breaks in my chest. More tears blur my vision. The lump forming in my throat makes it difficult to even speak. Elsie, I finally whisper, but my voice cracks. Throwing my arms around her, I sob, unable to think or break away from her. Even now, the one person I can't be strong for is her. She sobs with me, holding me tight. Several long moments crawl by before my weeping slows to sniffling. Standing back, I look down into her face, trying to memorize every feature. She looks so much like Mikhail, I think, her features similar to the younger sister I left behind so long ago. My heart can't bear going through this again. I'll miss you more than anyone, I finally managed to whisper, and I'll miss you. Reaching into a pocket, she pulls out Valera's right. When she holds it out to me, I remember the countless times she begged me to wear it before this war began. I gingerly touched the angel pendant, thinking back to the day I presented it to Mikhail. I told Mikhail to remember me when she wore it. Here, Elsie says, this is your right. You wear my right, Valera told me the first time I saw her phantasm. That memory seems like an eternity ago. Shaking my head, I close Elsie's fingers around the angel, lowering her hand. No, I say, it's yours. It proves your right to reign. Please remember me when you wear it. She hesitates. I slide it from her hand and fasten it around her neck. A heavy burden leaves me, seeing the pendant resting against her chest. All is finally as it should be. Relief lessens the sting of parting enough for me to genuinely manage a smile for my friends and family. Friends, we have to go, I tell them. We won't say goodbye, Arla. Elsie smiles back at me. I have faith we'll see each other again one day. Maybe, I say, though my heart knows it can never be. I wish you all well, dear loved ones, I tell them with a bow. Pray to the dragons on our behalf. They bow to me, standing back as I climb to the top of the crater. I look up at the pentagram, holding my hands out before me once again. I whisper the chant that Maverick taught me when we left Major's dimension. Light hovers around my fingers, growing into an orb that floats around the spire. The orb grows larger and larger, darkening to black. Oriel, I shout, take your people through. Imps storm up to the orb from all sides, pouring out of the trees and bushes. The ground shakes as they trample upward, but the water remains firm. Once the last imp disappears inside, the dwarves come running next. I feel my strength leaving my arms. The orb flickers. Maverick wraps his arms around me from behind, passing new power into me. Hurry, he shouts to the company. All of you, go! They obey without question. Jor is the last to leave, spinning around and shooting Talon a two-fingered salute. He falls backward into the orb and vanishes. Are you ready? Maverick asks. I glance over our shoulders at my family and friends. Spoiler holds Elsie's hand. Her face is stained wet with tears, but a forced smile is on her lips. Thalen and Rhea stand together in silence. Gerald stands by father, whose back is turned, head hanging low. I guess he meant what he said. He can't watch me go. Pulling away from Maverick, I run back to Elsie, squeezing her tight. I love you, Elsie, I whisper, kissing her on the cheek. I give her one last hug, then run to Maverick. Taking my hand, he jumps with me into the orb. We're plunged into a dark abyss. And then it goes into the final battle. So those are some of my favorite scenes from the Vow That Twisted Fate. It is by far not a exhaustive list, but it's taken me almost an hour just to read those scenes. So if you would like to hear more or know other scenes that I love, you can drop those in the comments on YouTube, and I will reply with some for you to take a look at. If you have the book, I can drop some page numbers in there. But these are definitely some of the highlights. And there are more that I wish I could have shown, but I just felt like they gave too much away. Like when the dwarves are first called forward in time and Maverick first sees Arla for the first time, and what that meeting is like was always one of my most heart-pounding moments in the book, as well as a scene where Maverick confronts Arla and is like, you're a spoiled, naive child and you don't know anything about the world. And that sort of begins her journey into the character we see at the end of the book. Even though that scene is hard on her, it's a lot of fun to write. So yeah, thank you all so, so much. Oh, that scene broke me, Nadia. Yeah, yeah, it broke me too. I'm not much of a crier when I read books, and maybe that's because I love dark fantasy so much. But again, it tying back to my love for my sister made it so real to me. Um, and if you sort of cry reading that one, if you read Splitting Dawn, that's coming out in the Realm of Darkness box set, and if you happen to be a fan of morally gray characters, there might be more tears at the end of that book, but in a good way. It's a good tears. All right. Well, thank you all so much again. I hope to do something similar with future books in the future, and I'll catch you all later. Bye.